commonly done down in the foot when somebody has turned their ankle and you want to make sure, see if there's a fracture. Now, it's not an x-ray, it's not an absolute, but if you get a response to this disproportionate to the force applied, I wouldn't have them get up and walk it off. Okay, so the bump test is you simply take the thenar eminence, which we know where that is now, and apply it to the calcaneus and just bump the calcaneus. Okay, just like that. And if there is a disruption in the talus or the ankle mortise, that vibration going through there, any fracture by definition is a break in the periosteum. The periosteum is rich in nerve endings and supplies, very sensitive, and the vibration going through there will be picked up and amplified, and people will have a reaction, not like, ooh, stop that. It'll be like, they'll be like pulling away from you, okay, or going, ow, you know, something like that, or okay, things like that. Not like, okay, you can stop any time now. It will be some sort of, you know, reaction that will be very, very visible. So that's the bump test. So you're bumping the calcaneus, sending vibrations through the ankle mortise. The percussion, as you're going to take before they become swollen beyond recognition, is find the malleoli and just take your finger and tap on it. Okay, so that would be for the lateral and medial, and the same thing as the vibration that would be going through the periosteum there would be very uncomfortable. So most people, if you tap, that doesn't hurt, does it? No. Okay, so on most normal, again, tapping on normals, you'll know what a normal response is. You'll be quickly able. Now, if you've really sprained your ankle, somebody would be saying like, okay, you can. That's not the most comfortable thing I've experienced, but it shouldn't be this disproportionate, you know, flexion withdrawal accompanied by, you know, them grabbing you and threatening your life and things like that, making interesting verbalizations. So that's as simple as it is, percussion bump test. Now, while we've got you here, let's say that we had some swelling. Let's scoot down just a little bit. All right. So let's say we have some calf swelling. Okay, so there's some swelling in the calf, and we suspect DVT. Okay, so what you would want to do is look at it and use your powers of observation and say, this looks like the most swollen portion of her calf. So what I would do is I would, a pen, marker, something.
No pets.
All right. So let's say that her calf is most swollen right here, and I would put a mark.
Here.
Is there a dry marker on the board?
Yeah, marker.
Rainbows on it?
Nah.
Just make sure it
Clouds
looks like
and
a good
rainbows?
tattoo line.
It smells like marshmallows.
It's doodle.
Oh.
Well, do you want
I want the doodle set.
Blue Expo or doodle?
I want the doodle.
All right. So let's say it's here.
What does doodle smell like?
Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I've got to be able to document where that location is. I can see it, but I can't define it yet. So I'm going to have to pick, and this is why we did the anatomy, I'm going to have to pick a point of anatomy, either the tibial tuberosity or inferior pole of the patella. So what I'm going to do is have her flex her knee a little bit, and I'm going to just go along the inferior pole of the patella. And now I can take and I can measure this, and we'll use centimeters. And so I can go there, and it's 17 centimeters inferior or distal to the inferior pole of the patella. So now, knowing that, why are you using centimeters? Because that's the accepted measurements now in the medical society. You will not see inches used very much at all. So now, what I want to do is I've got to compare apples and apples for symmetry. So I'm going to go now, how far below the inferior pole? 17 centimeters. So I'm going to lay that there, go down 17 centimeters, get out my marshmallow marker, and put a mark there, connect it. So now I've identified a spot that is reproducible. If I go and document it and I say, you know, this calf was, you know, appeared swollen, and the most visually evident spot was measured as 17 centimeters distal to the inferior patellar pole, comparing right and left. You know, then that's what we're going to do. Now, this is mine is cool because all I got to do is do this and take the slack out of it. Take the slack out. What's that? What's that? You get them from vendors that come by and give you little toys. So I take the slack out of it.
How does it feel?
There we go. Yeah, they don't always work. So that's why I don't always like fancy things, because they don't always work. So in the case where the retractor won't work, what I'm going to do is go all the way around here, and actually I got to put it on the other side so I get the 0 mark. Okay. So I'm going to go around the circumference, and I'm going to go over, and I'm going to get a reading which is 36.5 centimeters. Okay, so remember, it's not something like this. It's the Goldilocks thing. I'm not squeezing it. I don't have too much slack. I just take enough tension out where it'll lay on down there, and it's 36.5. So now I'm going to go over to the other side, and I'm going to measure it there. And see, not everybody's perfectly symmetrical, so it wouldn't surprise me if it's a little bit different, and as a matter of fact it is. It's 35.2. So that's my baseline. And so now I know how much larger it is than what we would normally expect, and then each day I can go back and remeasure it in the same exact spot and see if it's getting more swollen or that swelling's resolving. So the same thing we will do for at the knee, and it doesn't usually what's a good measurements to become familiar with is the largest point of circumference of the calf. We can identify that on each other, just mark it, measure it, see where that is. And then measurements that are commonly used are around the mid-patella, which you would find the medial lateral facets of the patella, remember from our lab, and go around there. You'd mark the mid-patella with your marker, okay, and you go around there. The measurement there is usually going to correspond with the joint lines, the medial and lateral joint lines, so it will tell us about the relative amount of swelling in the joint around the knee. You would mark the same if you're going to do a bilateral comparison. Then usually what I do is I go up about 10 centimeters, which is 4 inches. 7.5 to 10 centimeters is usually where you will find the VMO, the mass of the VMO. So again, a lot of times it's easier on the uninvolved side to see where the mass, the biggest point of the VMO is. Mark that, measure the distance between the mid-patella and that, and then do the same on the other side, because that's where it should be if it was there. Okay, because usually you're going to see, so you'll be able to document joint swelling, VMO atrophy, and then I usually go up another 3 centimeters from there, which kind of gives me the total circumference of the quad hamstring group and some indication of atrophy of the thigh. And you'll see that after ACL reconstructions that one leg will look smaller than the other, and over time, as you're doing strengthening programs, you want to keep comparing to these baseline measurements to see if a person is actually decreasing swelling at the joint and improving their musculature. So if you've got shorts on, great. If not, try to roll them up as far as we can and at least get familiar with measuring circumference of the calf. Now, if you can, this would be a better way of measuring, because what's wrong with this? I've got gravity pushing down on the calf and spreading the tissues out. So it's better if it can be done with that, so you don't have that as a factor. It's also going to be easier to put your stuff around. It may even work this way.
What about when measuring the knee? The muzzle flexion?
Oh, it works this way. So here I can just put it down, okay, and it actually tightens. There was too much tension from her calf in the other one. In the knee, usually what I will do is oftentimes I'll put a towel or a bolster so that those areas are free, because if you've injured your knee, it's swollen, you may not be able to get 90 degrees of flexion to do this. This may be it. And if there is a significant difference, a lot of times you will have an acute knee that'll come post-op arthroscopy, and because of the swelling, the pain, they can only get minus 20 degrees of full extension. So you want to measure the other knee. You've got to kind of match it and measure it in the same angle. Otherwise, if this one is measured here and I'm measuring around here, and this one I can squish down, it's not going to be an apples and apples measurement. I'm measuring in anatomically the same place, but this one is being squished and this one is not. Okay, so I try to mimic the same or similar angle to that. Okay, so get out your tape measures.